Good morning guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. We have a repair job today and it's an urgent one. It's been pushed right up the queue like about 100 years, judging by all the repair jobs I have to do. Last night Christine was making some magic in the kitchen and she came up with a beautiful meal. I forget what it was, but it was nice. And the rice cooker, we needed rice with it, and her favourite rice cooker threw in the towel. It was almost finished, the rice was just about right, and it just turned off, no power at all, wouldn't turn back on, and she tried it in different power points, absolutely nothing. So whilst I was enjoying a beautiful meal with slightly gluggy and hard rice, I thought I better do a repair on this. I suspect it is a thermal fuse. Sometimes they blow for no apparent reason. They are designed, of course, as a safety feature so that if something gets overly hot, it will blow the fuse. Unfortunately, they're not designed as just a replacement fuse. Most people then throw the appliance out and buy a new one, which the Ultimate Recycler hates. They're generally not economical to fix, of course, because you can buy a rice cooker pretty cheaply these days. What brand is this one? It will only be a supermarket brand. Homemaker. Rice cooker model RC-4700-A. I don't know, has it got a date code? 2014, so it's actually done over 10 years, but it still looks clean, it still works great. Christine loves it. Why throw it out? Let's see if we can fix it. Now, the general rule of repairs is test everything, assume nothing. So Christine did exactly the right thing by trying a different power point in the kitchen, and she tried a power point that she knew was working because something else was on it. Still didn't work, no power. So I've grabbed a different cord here because the next step is to check the cord. We'll try this cord in the appliance tester and power that on. The cord's plugged in. Do we have any life? No, there's no lights at all. Now it needs to press the center down and click the switch. There's no power. And I do definitely have power. The appliance tester says it's safe. I guess we should test an earth while we're going. And that checks fine. So everything's okay, except we've just got no power. So different cord then rules out that the cord is an issue. The fault must be in here. I'm going to take the bottom off. Looks like we have some security screws. And there should be a thermal fuse in here because they put them on everything that heats. And if it's not that, it must be just simply a connection. Extremely remote chance that the element's burned out. I wouldn't expect that to happen. There's no burnt smell to it. It just stopped working. So let's get the bottom off. So the security screws in here are a flat slot with a lump in the middle, and that's the bit that I'm going to use for them if we've got a focus there. So that's just out of one of these little universal kits. This is a king chrome one. I think I've got a link on my Amazon store for those. Pretty handy. It has all your Torx bits and all your other most common security screws. Okay, we have a screw here holding an earth wire. It can probably stay there. So fairly easy to access this. And we have a thermostat. In that section there will be the thermal fuse. So we'll check that first. Okay, I've got the meter set to diode test, which will give us a buzz when we have a connection. These are great to get into, much easier than an iron. I repaired Christine's iron a while back that had a thermal fuse gone, and they're terrible to get into. Righto, so that wire goes into that end. The thermal fuse always seemed to be enclosed in a heat resistant sleeve, and they are positioned near where everything gets hot, otherwise it's pointless having them. And the other end comes out here to one side of the element. So straight from the power switch, provides power to the element, and the other end goes through the thermostat. Let's make sure that we have connection, or see if we do or not, onto this terminal here. And no, it looks like it's open circuit. Let's check that. Nothing. So it's definitely the thermal fuse. which it should be if it's a sudden loss of power. Unless you smell a burnt smell or something, then it could be the switch, or the socket fused. It could be a problem with the thermostat, but usually if something burns out, you'll smell it. The thermal fuse just pops like a fuse does. It's obviously got too hot, but it doesn't look like anything's been too hot around here, so it's probably... Oh, that's a little loose, the mounting bracket. If I can be a little skeptical on things, I might suggest that the manufacturers were more than happy with a 10-year life and they think you should buy a new one. So maybe the fuses just aren't designed to last long term. Maybe they break down. I'm not sure. Let's snip the cable tie. And we can get access here. That one's unplugged off the inlet. That's on the neutral side, actually, I think. And we've got then this terminal to remove. So this will be easy. We'll be able to remove the thermal fuse completely from the wiring, and hopefully we've got one to replace it with. And just the screw that clamps it down, that is a bit loose. It's probably just a self-tapper. Here it is. Doesn't matter. It doesn't need to make any connection. It's just a bracket to hold it. So there we have our assembly with our thermal fuse. We'll take that into the other workshop and we'll see what value it is and see if we've got one. Okay, this bracket's just folded round here to clamp it in position. And we can slide the sleeve off one end. There we go, as easy as that. Now these fuses should have a number on them. It looks a bit black one end, so I guess that's what's happened. And they're crimped, and you can't just solder one in, because often where these fuses are used actually gets hot enough to melt the solder, so your connection will just fall apart. That's why these wires have this heat-proof insulation, and even the sleeve is like, I don't know what it's made out of, but some sort of heat-proof sleeving. So you can't just resolder these, they do have to be crimped. Often there's not a lot of room. In this case we've got a fair bit of room. So I'm going to first work out what's, let me see if I can read that. I'll try a magnifying glass here and see if we can read what it says. And I'll get a photo for you so you can understand it. I think it says 172 Celsius, 10 amp, 250 volt. So I better go through my stocks and see if I've got one that tests okay. And we can crimp a new one in. So after a quick rummage through my selection of thermal fuses that I've clipped out of things that I've scrapped, so if I'm scrapping a heater or a kitchen appliance that works but it's very dirty or it's got a break, I'll save the thermal fuse. They're easy to check anyway. In fact, let's check the one I found. So we'll put this back on diode check. Also double check the old one in case there was a fault with the wire, but it's definitely got no activity there. And the new one is good. Well, new second hand. So now we've got to crimp that one in. I'm going to use some little side cutters and just peel the old crimped piece off. This one's just a brass fitting that's been crimped on, and I think that one is much the same. So we'll peel them off so that we're not cutting the wire too short, because we can then use the full length of the wire. Another thing with soldering, of course, you can't solder them because quite often the heat from the soldering iron travels down the wire and will blow the fuse just from trying to solder it. I think solder melts at around about 180 degrees Celsius, so these are rated at 192. Solder is definitely no good for these. As far as crimping goes, I've got some little butt connectors here, different sizes. I just bought off eBay. I've got a fairly good Nipex crimping tool, but you could probably get away with the normal crimp fittings for automotive and just cut the actual plug part off and just use the crimp section and use your automotive tool to crimp it. As long as it's secure and it doesn't pull apart, it's going to be perfectly fine. They don't need to be insulated because it's underneath that sleeve anyway. Alright, I'll see if I can get this done. Okay, with all the old brass connectors removed, we can start assembling. Now the other ones are a side by side. These are a butt connector, so the wires butt up to each other. I think that's what it means. So we can crimp one end at a time. And these are the 0.15 size ones, so we can go down to there and give them a good crimp. There There we go. I've given them a double crimp, so that's not coming apart. Excellent. We'll do the other end, and then we've got to remember we've still got this sleeve on here, so don't let that come off. And then we can put it back in the appliance. So all crimped up, nice and solid, and to make it look neat, we just slide the sleeve back over it. Doesn't matter how messy your crimps look as long as they're solid and not going to come apart. So that's all we need to do there. We can put this bit back on. I think it went this way. I will check that when we get back out the workbench. And we just need to fold that up with some pliers and ready to go. Now with this assembled, we can put it back in the appliance. I've folded the metal clamp over exactly where the thermal fuse is. I'm presuming that it's probably sensing the heat in this bracket because heat travels through metal rather than just the ambient air temperature in here. So I'm pretty sure that's the idea with those clamps, is they have to go right over the top of the thermal fuse. Alright, so I've got it facing the right way. We can attach this down here again. And maybe it had a bit of a influence on that self-tapper being loose. I don't know. I wouldn't have thought it would transfer as much heat then. That was bent a bit, that's better. So let's put the self-tapper back in and make sure it's tight. Okay, that's good. Now we can put the terminal back on this tab and the other wire that goes to the front switch, I think. And this one doubled back round and went to the pin on the socket here. And we'll just put another cable tie around there to neaten the wires up, and we can give it a test. I don't have any little cable ties left. I have to buy some small ones. Well, I think there's some at the shop. That will do for here though. Okay, double check, everything's done up, everything's tight. The cables are all plugged in and they're secured. I guess we could just check with our meter to make sure we have a connection now. Okay, so it was this end and this. Beautiful. Should work. We should be able to have non-gluggy rice. And not so hard, perhaps. Okay, I've plugged it back in. We'll fire up the appliance tester. And we have a yellow light. Success. Let's just make sure the earth is still good. It passes on my appliance tester. If we hold that down and push the button, the red light's on. It says cooking. And the element is warming up. Success. One fixed rice cooker. Excellent. Okay, that repair took me under half an hour, and some of that time was spent searching through all my thermal fuses for the right size. So it's a pretty quick repair to do, much easier on these things than a lot of other appliances because they're very easy to access. But even so, half an hour labour charge these days is still probably more than purchasing a new one. And that's where the world's gone a bit crazy, I think. Half an hour, I like to work on $60 an hour, so that's $30, but that's a ridiculously cheap labour rate these days for a repairer. I don't really worry about that. I would prefer to fix things. This isn't a paying job, of course. It's for Christine. It's her favourite rice cooker, so she'll be pleased to have it going again. And I guess, though, if you are weighing up, do you pay someone $30 to fix something like this or have a go yourself? If you go and buy a new one, yeah, you might pick up one for $25, but you've got to go to the shop. It's time. You know, if you charge your own time out going shopping for this stuff at $60 an hour, sometimes you're better off just fixing it. If you're a bit of a home tinkerer, these can certainly be done at home. You, of course, need to know what you're doing around electricity, but they're pretty straightforward. Thermal fuses can be saved from other appliances, as you've seen. Crimping, if you've got a bit of a home workshop, you've probably got crimping tools anyway. Pretty easy fix. There you go. One rice cooker ready to use again. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.